This week on the Digital Marketing Scoop, we're talking with Darren McManus all about featured snippets. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Digital Marketing Scoop. This week we're talking with our guest Darren McManus. Darren, how are you keeping?
Hey guys, how are things?
Very good now. So for our audience, would you tell us a bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure, yeah. So I'm a digital marketing consultant. Basically, I work focused mainly on search engine optimization and web analytics, which I see as kind of the two core building blocks for any digital marketing strategy, particularly for smaller, medium, and startups, smaller, medium businesses and startups. Since if you don't have your analytics tracking right, you can't measure any other marketing tactics. And SEO, obviously, it's fine paying for traffic at the start, but you don't want to rely on paying for PPC or Facebook or traffic via paid channels all the time. So that's what I try to work on mainly with clients. And then kind of work on digital strategy as well and rely on my network to if we need other tactics and stuff like that. I've been working in digital marketing for just over 6 years. Worked initially in-house with Dublin Airport as a digital marketing executive. I was there for 2 years and then I moved on to their digital agency, actually Arakivo, based in Dublin. And I was with them I'm still with them part-time. I was with them full-time for 3.5 years. Working first as digital strategist and then moved on to specialize in web analytics and SEO. So I'm web analytics and SEO specialist there at the moment. And the past year, I moved back home to Galway, and I've been digital consultant essentially on a freelance basis with small and medium businesses in the West, basically, or outside of Dublin, trying to focus on, I suppose, businesses outside of Dublin and help those get on the digital marketing ladder through analytics and SEO. Yeah, and so the website is googleanalytics.ie. Little plug.
What a real domain name.
Until Google's lawyers come after me, but they haven't yet, so we're okay.
Oh, brilliant! Do you see? That was a fair get, all right. In fairness,
yeah.
I was quite surprised when it was available. I said I'd do a little exact match domain experiment to see, I suppose, if I could rank for those terms initially, and it worked. And then I began getting links and building a link profile. So I'm kind of holding on till I'm kicked off at this moment. To be honest, I have a few backups, but let's see.
Yeah,
fair play. So I noticed actually there on your LinkedIn, I think it was last week possibly, you put up the update around Google's updates to feature snippets. So for just maybe people listening who don't know what featured snippets are, you might just go through maybe what a featured snippet is, but also maybe the change that Google have made and the potential impact of that. Sure.
So featured snippets are basically auto-generated rich results in Google search results. There's a number of different types of rich results, and they've been appearing more and more kind of commonly over the past few years in Google. So ones people will be familiar with would probably be like knowledge graphs. People also asked kind of tabs. What else? News items, stuff like that. And what they do is, I suppose, they're designed primarily to allow users to get the answer they want on the search engine results page without having to click through to a website. So it's kind of Google's move from being a search engine and directing traffic throughout the internet to their move to try to, I suppose, own as much as possible in terms of becoming more of an answer engine than a search engine. And kind of featured snippets, along with all those other types of rich results, they've had an impact in that. The amount of zero-click searches. So a zero-click search is what it says in the tin. It's any search that on Google that doesn't lead to a website click or an exit to a website. They're estimated to be about 50% of searches globally. So it's a huge amount. So the whole nature of kind of feature snippets, along with other rich results, they've changed the whole nature of search engines, Google in particular, really. So what sets featured snippets apart from the other rich results is they're always in what's called position 0. So they're always above the traditional position 1 that everyone used to try to rank for. So they're always there, and there's 4 different types. They're always in like a circular box that stands out a little bit from regular results. Generally, on mobile, they're very, very similar now. And Google are experimenting with how the SERP looks on desktop as well. So I don't think they're going to stand out for too much longer. But there's 4 types. There's a paragraph featured snippet, which is just whatever the query is. Google gives a little 40 to 60 word paragraph that they pull from a page they see as relevant. There's list featured snippets, which are numbered or bulleted lists, or kind of step-by-step how-tos that Google will pull from a page where you have an ordered list. There's tables, which Google just pulls HTML tables from a page that it sees as relevant. They're usually for searches around price comparisons and numerical stuff like that. And the final one is video. So that's essentially where Google will pull in a video, usually a YouTube video from what I can see, but they'll pull in a video or a kind of a pre-selected snippet of a video that answers the query. So that's what featured snippets are. In terms of the update recently, so before sometime last week, if you had done really good work to gain a featured snippet for your page or for your content, you would have the benefit of appearing in the featured snippet in position 0, so the very top of the search results page. But you would also have the added benefit of keeping hold of whatever position you had on the top page anyway. So if you were always also in position 3, 2, or 1, or any other page in the position on the top page, you would also keep that position. So essentially, you're taking up way more real estate on that Google search results page. So you're in position 0 as well as your 1, 2, or 3. And I had clients on my own site that had that, and so great click-through rate, and it was great to kind of own that SERP, particularly if there are no ads on it. You're owning nearly on mobile. You're owning a huge amount of above the fold, as to say. The update recently, then, what happened was Google rolled out an update whereby if you work on your content and optimize it, or even some people accidentally get featured snippets, without thinking about it explicitly. But if you get a featured snippet for your content, you can no longer rank anywhere else at number 1 or on page 1. So Google describes it as deduplicating the search result page, essentially. So now, if you were previously in position 1 and you gain a featured snippet, you lose that position 1. And people might think, what's the problem with that? You're just higher up. But there have been studies, and every search is going to be different. Every result is going to be different depending on user intent, depending on the query, and depending on the market you're in. But there was a study a few years ago by Ahrefs that showed that actually featured snippets have, and this is a broad aggregation of results, but they saw that they had lower click-through rates than position 1. So if there was no featured snippet on a page, the average click-through rate for position 1 would have been 26, 27%. When there is a featured snippet, that position 1 click-through rate drops down to 19, but the featured snippet only gets about 8, 9. So you're not actually getting as high a click-through rate, according to that study, as you would in first position. Now, again, as I said, as with everything in SEO, unfortunately, the answer is always it depends. Yeah. So I don't want people who are gaining featured snippets to go, oh no, this is a bad thing, we need to get rid of them. It depends on your case. Look at your Google Search Console, compare your click-through rates before and after the featured snippet, and stuff like that. So the jury's out on whether, I suppose, featured snippets are still a good thing to optimize for. To give you two examples of scenarios, I suppose, where it might be bad, and then one where it might be good. A scenario where it might be bad would be if, say, for example, you're a smaller business and an example where it might be good. Say, for example, you're a smaller business and you're competing with really established businesses with big websites, lots of links, high authority, and you just can't. You've tried your traditional SEO of building links, of optimizing your content, and you have a really fast technical website. Usually when you cover all those, you should be first, second, or third, roughly anyways. But if you can't get into the top 5 with all those optimizations, why not try optimize for featured snippets, right? And try to leapfrog those pages that you can't get past with traditional SEO. So that's a scenario where getting a featured snippet is your best case scenario. The other scenario then, I suppose, is if you were ranking well already, if you were ranking in position 1 and you had the featured snippet, now since last week you've lost your position 1, and this has negatively affected your click-through rate. Well, again, check it on a case-by-case basis. But if that does happen, then it's obviously a feature snippet in that particular case is a bad thing. Luckily, I think there are ways around that second scenario, in that Google offers you Google offers you the ability to either withdraw your content from being able to feature in feature snippets, or it allows you to instruct the search engine to only show a maximum amount of characters in that featured snippet. So to do that, you use what's called meta tags, so snippet meta tags. And what meta tags essentially are is they're little pieces of code you add into, really simple piece of code you add into the head of the whatever page, the page in question. And a meta no snippet tag just tells Google, don't use a snippet, don't use this content for a snippet. So you should keep your regular position of 1, 2, or 3. If you have got a featured snippet currently and you've lost your position in the SERP, what you can do to test, before making that no snippet change, what you can do to test whether it would be a good idea for you is search for whatever the term is that you're showing up for with a featured snippet, and your regular search will say your featured snippet, competitor, and just in the URL bar you can add a query string num equals 9, hit enter, and what that will do is it will show you what the SERP would look like without a featured snippet. Now I'm not sure how long that's going to work.
They'll let Google, it go. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah, I mean, there tends to be little things SEOs might take as rules, and it turns out they're glitches, and Google will fix them. But that works for the moment, and the benefit there is, if you see right after doing the num equals 9 hack that you're only in position 6, well, maybe there's no point getting rid of your snippet because position 0 is probably still better than position 6. But if you're in position 1, it's probably no harm testing a no snippet tag to see if your click-through rate increases by only being in position 1 rather than the snippet. So that's how you get around that. So there's ways around it, but whether it's a good thing or a bad thing for SEO, last week it would have been fairly unanimously agreed that it was a good thing. Now we're in kind of testing and research and experimentation phase, but I don't think it's going to be a disaster for anyone. Touch wood. But it's the jury's out a little bit.
Yeah. I suppose as well, a lot of people I think don't know the link between featured snippets and voice search.
Yeah.
And I suppose the way people look at the featured snippets on desktop and mobile is, oh, brilliant, I'm getting this information quickly and I don't even have to leave Google. But when it comes to voice, I mean, that's where I really think down the line feature snippets are going to be absolutely massive, because when you're interacting with voice, you're not seeing a list of results, you're getting one result back, and chances are that result is going to be the feature snippet. So how how at the moment are you? I suppose a lot of people aren't optimizing for voice at the moment. But how do you see in the future that going, and that link between voice and feature snippets? Do you think it's going to get a lot stronger?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Yeah, as you said, if I make a voice search on my Google Assistant, for example, the result I get where a featured snippet exists will be a featured snippet. Particularly paragraphs and lists will be read out. And the benefit of that is, right, you're probably not going to get a lot of traffic from there, but it will read out this was found at, and your URL. So you're getting brand recognition there. So it's important. It is important for brand recognition and for building. If you want to position yourself as the expert in a particular area, that's really good. At the moment, according to Google's figures, around 20% of searches on Android devices are voice search. So I think that's a fairly reliable one to go by. 20% worldwide. So it's nothing to be snubbed. But at the end of the day, the old-fashioned mindset of SEO is to drive traffic. Yeah. So it's not going to drive a whole lot of traffic. There is scenarios where if it's kind of if Google sees that if the query matches like maybe longer form content, it'll give you a snippet and say you can read more here, and it'll send a notification to maybe your Google app, your Google Home device or something like Google Home app on your phone or something like that. So you might get little bits of traffic from it as well. But yeah, it's something to take into consideration when you're considering a no snippet as well. It comes down to the types of search really. You're going to get your brand kind of awareness out of it. You might get some traffic, but yeah, I think the real benefit at the moment is that positioning yourself as the resource for information on particular topics. And so that's going to get bigger and bigger. People are going to start using voice search more and more. Like the predictions are always way too high. There's prediction floating about that, 2020 by 2020, 50% of searches are so like it.
I'm sure we even said that in the previous podcast.
Yeah, I know, and it was out there, and it was being said by everyone. But like it's a prediction, and it was the same for mobile is going to overtake desktop. I mean, for 10 years before it did, kind of thing. So I wouldn't ignore it at all. I'm not trying to kind of belittle the importance of voice search, but it's not your core strategy at the moment unless you're a very particular type of business. To optimize for voice search, focus on questions your business are asking about, like how to, what is, any questions. How to, what is, and does, I think are the three top queries that will revert to feature snippets.
I always say think of your FAQ. I think that's always a great place to start when you're trying to optimize for feature snippets or for voice.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Well optimized FAQs with the question as either with FAQ schema or with the header with a H2, with the question as a H2 and the answer as a paragraph or a list. Yeah, very good.
I always find as well though that like I try to use voice search a lot, even just to kind of get into the mindset of using it. So I use my Google Home all the time, but then when I try to use Siri, it's a different ball game, and like some of them are like up to par, some of them aren't, and then I think actually a small bit of the lag with the voice search could actually just be that they're just not to the standard we expect.
Not up there yet.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely it's going to take time.
Definitely.
But it's you can see with the proliferation of smart devices. I mean, it's already started, so you can imagine in 5 years that that prediction of 50% probably won't. If it's not there, it'll be a hell of a lot closer.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that. Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
So Darren, in terms of creative people are out there, they're trying to I've got a website, I'm down the rankings, but maybe I can look at trying to create content for featured snippets to try and increase our traffic. Okay, we talked about FAQs. Is there any other particular types of content that I think people could focus on to really try and start getting featured snippets for their website?
Yeah. So so there's a bit of a myth that you need schema.org markup. You need structured data markup to gain featured snippets. But in most contexts, like what you need is really good quality content based around questions that your users are asking, and good formatting. And so the formatting for the different types is a little bit different. But I think the content is an important one in that, like, know what questions your audience are asking. So you mentioned the FAQ, like that's where they should end up, but you should always kind of keep tabs on what your customers or clients are actually asking you. And if they're asking you that, if you get one or two clients asking you the same question, there's a very good chance that a lot of people are out there Googling that.
Yeah.
So that's one really easy way. The other way is like traditional keyword research, like using AdWords or Google Ads Keyword Planner, Moz, any of those kind of search tools, or also ask.com is also a good one for if you've done quite a bit of keyword research, like your key high traffic driving topics. Also ask.com will give you ideas around what those people are also asking. So like broaden out your content. And the good thing about that site is, well, it's usually question format, which suits featured snippets. In terms of then the formatting of them, so they're all different: paragraphs, listed, tables, videos. So paragraph featured snippets will generally appear for questions, obviously. Really, there's no schema needed here. All you've got to do is create good quality, concise content. Like it'll be a 40 to 60 word limit in the search results. So try write a 40 to 60 word intro paragraph in kind of inverted pyramid style. So you're given the summary at the top rather than wait until the end, like writing like an essay where you have an intro and a middle. And try to give the key information up top. And then if people want, even for your content itself, you give that to people what they want. And then if they want more information and to delve into it, they scroll down. Well, that's one style of writing anyway. And that's one style that's good for that is good for paragraph featured snippets, because Google will find it easy to pick up that paragraph. Also use a good keyword focused H1 or H2 above that, so that's the question and that's the answer, and that's how Google will see it. That's pretty much it for paragraphs. I mean, it's answered the questions well and format them concisely, easy to read, and use your H1s and H2s. Lists, Google will put, again, use your H1 or H2 above the list to link that section to whatever topic it is you want to rank for. And use number the bulleted list. You can also use schema in this case. There's a schema.org markup, and I suppose what schema.org markup is for people that don't know, I suppose it's just an additional piece of code you can add to your site or your pages on your site, or certain sections of those pages that tell Google specifically what type of item this is. So it's kind of a broad database of types of content and how they're related to each other that Google and other search engines, amongst other robots and tools, use to identify what content's related to each other across the web. It's really easy to implement it. Item list is one type of it, and you can implement that around your item list as well, just to give an extra nudge to Google to know that it's a list. To be honest, I haven't had to use it that often when I've been trying to optimize for lists. Generally, a well-optimized list, regular bullet pointed list will do. The main thing to keep in mind with lists is you get it onto Google, but you still want people to click through to your website. So to do that, the trick is to keep your list to 8 items or more, so 8 lines or more, because after 7, Google starts to truncate the list. So it'll go, say for example, I have a client where they have a page that ranks its top 10 baby boys' names for 2020. So you'll see on Google 1 to 7, and then it'll have a little read more link, and that's how you encourage the click through from featured snippets.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's list. Tables, HTML tables are just pulled from your pages essentially. So again, a good H1 keyword focused H1 or H2 and HTML table below it with the answers. The trick is there, again, truncated. So it's 5 or more rows, or greater than 5 rows, or I'm not sure the columns, it's more columns, maybe 8 columns. So focus on the rows, I think, if you can. Don't try to shoehorn content into 4 rows of content into five rows, but where applicable, 5 is better than 4 to get that click-through rate up. And just focus there on price. Generally, it depends again on your market, but end-of-cycle keywords tend to work, like price comparisons and stuff like that. So if you have your pricing up on your website, and you have different packages, maybe that's a good opportunity to get a featured snippet, to format that as a table.
Cool.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
very good. Another really good source actually there I use sometimes is answerthepublic.com. So you put in a generic term and it pops back a huge list of different questions that people have searched for.
Yeah.
I
kind of like a tree diagram, isn't it?
It's like a wheel of terms or questions.
Yeah.
It's actually really good, even if you're just blog writing in general, not to mind
just for ideas.
Just for ideas alone. Yeah, it's very good. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. Really similar tool to I've mixed them up now. People also asked, and what was the other one? The one I mentioned earlier. It's by Search Candor. Can't remember the name now.
Right. We're lucky. It's on audio and video. So at this point, rewind, go back, and come back here.
Answer the public, and people also ask.
Yes.
Okay.
Brilliant. So I suppose if you were to wrap featured snippets up to someone who's fairly new to it, if you were to give like three pieces of a little checklist, we'll say. You're just getting into feature snippets. Here's the three things you should start off and doing. I suppose we've kind of covered a lot of them broadly, but if you were to just say, like, in kind of three lines, 3 steps, here's what to do.
Yeah.
No pressure.
So, again, like this has changed dramatically since, not dramatically. This has changed since last week even, but like my first point, I suppose, will also be, don't get too carried away with featured snippets. Focus on your traditional SEO, trying to rank in the top few positions, 1, 2, and 3, and driving traffic from there. Do that through focusing on the 3 core pillars of SEO: technical SEO, a good, technically sound site that's pages are fast to load. You've got your robots.txt is optimized, your XML sitemaps optimized. Focus on having really good content, and again, focus on content that your audience wants to know about. Don't just focus on your products and your services. Focus on helping answer customer questions, and then building inbound links is the third one. And that's a tricky one for a lot of companies, but it kind of goes hand in hand a bit with having a really good quality content and sharing that socially. So I'd say don't get too caught up in featured snippets. If you are finding it, number 2, if you are finding it difficult to break into those top 3 results, and you're not seeing a lot of traffic for content that you consider to be really good and really useful, it might be a good strategy to try to optimize for featured snippets in those ways that I mentioned there, to try to leapfrog bigger, more established competitors. But always when you're doing that, remember to give your user a reason to click. So that's by truncating the lists, truncating the tables, and with paragraphs, you don't have a huge amount of options here in terms of click through, but you could experiment with the max snippets tag, which, if you see you've a featured snippet that's like towards the higher end of 60 words, and it's kind of given the user absolutely no reason to click through, maybe try add a max snippet to only allow a shorter amount, so the user has like more reason to click onto your website. Now, if you do that, it's early stages, it's an experiment, but if you do that, Google might say, right, well, this isn't the most relevant anymore. You might lose your snippet, but it's something to try out if you see the click through isn't too high from it. Third one then is, I'd say, if you have managed to get featured snippets already, either on purpose or by accident, like I have clients where, like, part of the strategy over the past year was to try and gain featured snippets, and now we're kind of like, when it come out last week, we're kind of panicking a bit, but there hasn't been like on a large scale any huge drop off in CTR, but we're still in like experiment testing phase. But if you do find that certain pages click through rate is down, and it's because you've got a featured snippet, experiment with the no snippet tag, and I suppose, as I said earlier, before adding a no snippet, you can test out with the num equals 9 query string on your search results. So without getting too technical, I suppose if you have gained a feature snippet at the expense of a position 1 or 2, you've lost CTR, just add the no snippet tag if you need to, and see if your CTR goes back up. Look, that's there in terms of featured snippets specifically. That's the 3 things I would I suppose point out.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Darren, thanks very much for joining us today.
No bother. Thanks a million, guys. It's a pleasure.
Brilliant. That's been this week's episode of the Digital Marketing Scoop.